It comes and goes. We're out here chasing a feeling.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Feels Out Loud, brought to you by Becoming Together Therapy and Wellness. This is your host, Becky McNatt, along with host Tara Martini. We're glad to have you listening as we live and share stories of mental health. Good morning, Tara.
Good morning, my love. So we are going to start with a science lesson today.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Before we even get into the focus, our topic today, I want to talk about fight or flight and all the parts of our brain that has to do with.
Sure, yeah.
So did you know that our minds naturally avoid the unknown?
Well, I feel it every day, but
Yeah.
I'm going to say then yes, but no.
Right. It is something that I've learned over time when I've studied this topic, that it makes so much sense.
Mm-hmm.
That we always say, like, this new chapter is scary. Well, scary is good. It's that idea of things that are not familiar to us cause some level of anxiety within us. So our amygdala, the part of our brain that responds to threats, releases, which we've talked about before on the show, fight or flight hormones at that first sign of chaos or that sense of unknown. Wait, I'm not familiar with this, because our body kind of goes back and goes, wait, I have no past or prior experiences, therefore this is new. That, partnered with your emotion regulating amygdala, is the executive brain. And that's the thing that sends signals to the frontal lobe. And that bad boy loves familiar patterns.
Yes, it does.
Which we as humans, we love patterns. So it's the idea of, we feel safest when we take the same route to school. We have our same coffee shop and order. And yes, that has to do with, we enjoy the flavor, but there's something comforting in my coffee that I love. And when they don't have that, it isn't just that disappointment of, oh, I have to order something different. It's that fear of, whoa, 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 whoa.
Things changed.
Something has changed. This is new to me, and I don't know what to do.
Totally.
It can be anything from, like I said, coffee to the route we take. Why? Because there's less risk, there's less uncertainty, and there's more safety. And you don't have to necessarily think physical or mental safety. It could just be comfort, right? And switch out the word from safety to comfort. So we love ourselves a good routine. We want to avoid the unknown. But here's the positive. New environments are good for our minds.
Yes, they are. They're so expansive. We talk about that all the time in terms of curiosity.
Yes, yes. But what do they actually do? Well, they stimulate your cognition, activating dormant neurons or brain cells, and they awaken things that have, if we look at it in simpler terms, that have kind of been sleeping. So as these neurons fire up, and we've talked about this before, there's the new pathways that are formed. So previously, I like to say sleeping or inactive connections now facilitate the communication between neurons. They form those new connections, they create those new bridges. And then what those do is they increase your mind strength, your flexibility in those situations of the unknown, and just longevity, right? We always say, and we hear that when you become, as part of the elderly demographic, as much as you can exercise your brain, the better you're going to be. That isn't just true for the elderly, that's true for any age.
Right.
It is that piece of, if we don't stimulate our minds, things start to, like I say, fall asleep.
Well, and you're talking about then that we stimulate our minds in part by expanding and feeling that anxiety. Travel's a huge part of it.
It is. It's a huge part.
Which is a huge part of American culture.
100%.
We do this all the time. And we might fear it, which is what we're like all diving into today on what does it look like to harness and hold what tension comes and what anxiety comes from experiencing the anxiety specific to traveling.
Yes, all things travel coming up.
I can't wait to talk about this more. Right now, we're going to take a short commercial break. Fascinating topic, but stay tuned as we dig deeper into the world specific to travel anxiety. Thank you for listening to Feels Out Loud. We will be back in just a moment.
All you got to do now
Welcome back to Feels Out Loud, brought to you by Becoming Together Therapy and Wellness. I am Becky McNett, and along with Tara Martini. Let's get right back into our discussion on anxiety around travel.
Let's do this. So as we mentioned in the last segment, we know that our brains are scared of the unknown, but we also know that the unknown is good for our brains.
Yes.
And one of the things that helps strengthen our brain is the concept of travel and exposing ourselves to the unknown.
Mm-hmm.
So Becky, I want to know, what emotions do you experience as you plan a trip? So you and your family are going to go somewhere.
Yeah. Well, I would say it's a whole spectrum. I tend to be one who gets more anxious when I travel. And so this whole topic resonates a lot with me because I find myself maybe trying to rationalize even out of doing it. Like, it's kind of hard this time of year, and this doesn't have to be even far away travel. This can be like something that is a drive. So I would say, though, I get excited.
Okay.
And I kind of story tell myself about what this will be like. But I also tend to catastrophize.
No.
And think about all the things that might happen. I try really hard to see the things that work for me, maybe also don't work for me. So that helps. That scenario ends up scenarioizing helps me think about how do I plan or how to prepare for that thing.
For sure.
So I do use it as a tool, but I would say that whole spectrum.
Well, and it's one of those where, like you just mentioned, you will play out scenarios in your head, and you at first glance would be like, well, that's anxiety. But that's also, you're using it as a coping tool in that, okay, I'm going to play out these scenarios, but then in addition to it, the healing part, I'm going to go, okay, if we're in that situation, then what will we do? And so that you're equipped then for those scenarios, whether it means you needed some form of special currency or a special ticket for that part of the trip. So it's helping you better prepare. So to me, I kind of experience the same thing when planning a trip. I'm very excited, but it's almost like a game of, here's your puzzle. Now make sure you have every piece, because once you're there, it can't be like, well, I'm going to swing on home and grab whatever.
Sure.
So it's just making sure all those pieces of the puzzle.
Total preparation.
Yes. And like you mentioned last segment, our culture is huge on travel. So 71% of US adults who make travel arrangements say the process is at least somewhat stressful for them.
Totally believe that.
Yes, and I do too, because it's that idea of anything, and it's a natural, healthy thing to be a little anxious about the unknown.
Yeah.
So it makes sense to me that 71% of people have some form of anxiety over a part of the trip. Well, what's the most stressful part of traveling? I found it interesting that 58% of adults say it's not the actual flying, because flying was the second, but rather it's the airport processes, like security, check-in, all of those things.
Lines, navigating, where to go. Yes, I completely agree with that.
I do. And I think of, you and I both love to travel, I would say. And so several times a year we're in airports. And I would say it is, and one thing we'll talk about later is that lack of control, right? We are moms. We are employees in that, an employer, that we need our day and our schedule. Like, okay, this is everybody's schedule. Here's my schedule. We're in control. We know there's not unknown factors. But you're driving to the airport. You don't even know if the line's going to be long. I mean, there's so many. How many lines will be open? Will there be enough security people? It's all these things that are out of our control that increase our sense of anxiety.
For sure.
So what I want to do is, we've looked at, okay, 71% of people have some form of anxiety about it. We've talked about the science behind it. Now let's look at what it is and where it comes from. Now, I picked this topic, or we discussed this topic, because I found myself, and one thing I love about being a therapist is you never know what your focus is going to be. And the more clients I had, I realized I talk a lot about anxiety around travel. And so then to do that, it was I found myself, researching that topic, and all the things and the data that I've talked about is, and what I'm going to get to later, is copious amounts of like coping skills and things that we can do. And I found myself going, well, this is a universal thing. And is it sometimes there's someone with a fear of flying? Yep. A lot of times it's that fear of unknown, and like I'm in a new environment.
Yeah. And as you've talked about, lack of control of that
Yes.
space,
Yep.
because if we don't know it, we don't know how to control the circumstance.
Yep.
Makes total sense.
So the definition of just travel anxiety is a specific type of anxiety that centers around the act of traveling. But what many people don't realize is it encompasses both the planning process and the experience of being in a new or unfamiliar environment. I think when a lot of people say travel anxiety, people think fear of flying. But it's not. It's the process, the planning and the packing and the list making and all the things we do. And then it's that experience of we are in a new culture. And whether that is you have to learn to drive on the other side of the road.
Yeah.
Or you have to learn to work with a new language.
Yeah.
Or you have unfamiliar foods you're going to be eating. This whole experience is foreign to you.
Yep.
Okay, so where does this come from? Well, negative associations with traveling can develop from a variety of experiences. And again, what I think is so fascinating about this topic that I've learned over time is that I always thought it was you had to have a fear of flying or a really bad experience or phobia in the past to make you have this concept of travel anxiety. And it isn't true, because one of the number one things is just that lack of control.
Yeah.
We're going from our home, which is comfort and routine, to the unknown, right? So we're not going to have as much control. We're going to the unknown voluntarily, which is scary.
We're picking it. Yep.
Yes. And then also that idea of the fear of flying. There is, which I think sometimes do you find when you're researching, I find names of places where I'm like, I didn't know there was a center of travel anxiety.
Yes. Oh, for sure.
What? So, social worker from the Center of Travel Anxiety in DC says 25 million adults have a fear of flying.
Wow.
Isn't that fascinating? A psychologist in the University of Washington who has studied the fear of flying. So this gentleman, his sole focus is to study the fear of flying for more than 20 years. Said it is not just, I am scared of being in a plane. The thing that he brought up, which was so fascinating, is a hodgepodge of different phobias that converge in an airplane.
Got it.
Which kind of blew my mind. So there are people in the plane who are, yes, afraid of dying in a plane crash. But there are people who are claustrophobic. There are those who fear having a panic attack, not being able to escape, not being able to get help.
Yeah.
People who are fear of germs. And so you think of now, it made me, since I started studying this concept more for my clients, every time I travel now, it's almost like I sit in a plane and it's like an experiment. I look around and I'm like, we are just a little petri dish of all these little things.
Yes.
And it's a fascinating concept.
Right.
Since COVID, there have been such changes with how people view travel.
Yeah.
The increase in wearing masks. And then it's that almost, have you noticed that almost tension or observing things around mask wearing, people not wearing masks?
Yes.
So that's a piece of just the health risks getting there because of the plane, close proximity to people. But then also this travel anxiety can come from the fact of when you're in the unknown, I don't know what the healthcare system looks like.
Yeah, makes so much sense.
I don't know the health risks. Some people will be like, oh, well, their water, don't drink their water, or whatever it is, or this place, you have to get shots for whatever things. All of that is telling yourself, I have a reason to be fearful, right? It's not enjoy your trip to so-and-so. There are no precautions you need to take. It's lovely and stress-free. before you even get on that plane, your body is being told and your mind are being told, you better start worrying. You better start being fearful. The simple act of, and I think you brought up a good point earlier when you said, this doesn't have to be on a plane. This could be just a trip. Maybe you're going with your kids to a hockey game that's an hour away and you've never been to that town before.
Yes.
This does not have to be a big, massive trip.
Yes.
It's any type of unfamiliar destination that you have been to, because then there's that level of separation anxiety.
Well said.
I don't want to leave the comfort of my own home.
Yeah. And the routine that comes from that.
Yes.
The patterning, as we mentioned.
Yep. We've been on vacation together. No matter how much fun you have on a trip, there is that beautiful sense of, I'm home in my bed with my blanket. I get to see our dogs, you know, that type of thing.
Right.
And so it's just, and again, it goes back to, we love ourselves a routine. And if you can know that now moving forward with any plans you have of, this is natural, and I'll eventually get home to my comforts, but to be present. And we've talked about this before, the idea of being present while you're gone, rather than focusing on, well, eventually I'm going to get home and this thing's going to be done.
Yeah. And that it's actually a good thing. So that sense of internal tension helps stretch us.
It does. And then lastly, it is any past negative experience. And it's fascinating because it's truly any negative past experience while in a new environment can provoke the onset of travel anxiety.
Totally see that.
So let's say, Becky, you've had no anxiety ever regarding traveling and planning and like whatever. And then someone in your family gets the stomach flu in some well-known vacation destination. Well, then the next time you go, there's going to be a little anxiety about, what if one of my family members gets the stomach flu?
Totally.
I'm going to have to now make precautionary steps to prevent that from happening.
Yes.
All of a sudden, now that's this anxiety that form that never existed before. And that in our brains, because of survival, right? That very basic fight or flight type thing, it sticks with us.
Yeah.
Not to give us anxiety, but to protect us. And we've talked about this before on the radio show of, it's protecting us and it's keeping us safe for the future. So what does travel anxiety look like? When you think, Becky, of someone who has anxiety over flying or just travel, are there any physical symptoms that come up or come to mind?
Well, I see, at least from the outside, it would seem like sweating. Maybe their face flushes. I pick up on an irritated energy or just short with the people around them. And certainly I have felt my thoughts start racing. They're going so fast. My heart rate gets faster. I think I'm just increasingly agitated.
All those things. And what's remarkable is, and why it's so important to talk about on the show, is that agitation, you mentioned a couple of times, is so important to know, because a lot of people will think, we are in a stressful situation and we are traveling and you're crabby. Well, no, I'm crabby because I'm anxious.
Yeah. It's the way that anxious operationalizes.
Exactly. So all the things that you said. And so when the symptoms of travel anxiety, first of all, it's person by person, right? So Becky sees that, maybe experiences some of those. The next person is like, nope. It's that idea of the fight or flight, and then how your body's responding to it, whether it's sweating or shaking or a stomach ache. Because fundamentally what we're talking about in terms of panic or anxiety, we're talking about the body's response to a perceived threat. And everybody responds differently.
Yeah, well, you say that makes me think about a trip I took with my family once. I was with my kids. I ended up with a sinus infection at Disney World.
Oh, that sounds like a great combo.
And then had doctor come to my room, who I got meds before I went on the flight, but it was the most painful, facial painful flight home, that I ended up with an ear infection and a sinus infection. My next trip, I had so much cold medicine with me. I think it was like half of my
yes.
of my luggage. It was like I was planning for every form of illness. So when you said we don't have to have had that before, and then we're now anticipating it. I had somebody
that's hilarious
say like nobody's ill right now. I'm like, but they could be. They could be.
And
So-
you know that it could happen because it did happen.
And
to
so
you.
to your point of this is very person by person,
Mhm.
how we operationalize that stress response. We've
Mhm.
talked about the stress response on this show, but how that shows up for us
Mhm.
is unique to the individual.
Yes, to each person. So one of the things that is a huge help is a lot of people will just say, I have travel anxiety. Okay, well, to what degree? Right? Because it can just be a little like, I'm feeling kind of uneasy, to be paralyzing. So one of the things that's super common is taking a quiz. And you can take quizzes for fun, right? Like back in the day where we in Cosmo magazine or Teen Spirit, we take like fun quizzes.
Yes.
Yes, there are lighthearted quizzes about travel anxiety, but there are also some very legitimate ones. And they are super beneficial because if you find the right ones that are actually legitimate, you can really pinpoint the why behind so many of them and then create a more precise care plan for you. And then that's going to help moving forward. So looking at, okay, well, what are some of the benefits for taking a quiz? Well, you identify your anxiety level. Again, on a scale, is it mild to severe? You can answer questions about your symptoms because they're so individual.
Yeah.
And a lot of times too, you are going to find you may have avoidant behaviors, right? So you avoid certain situations or activities because of your anxiety, which a lot of people don't think about, that avoidant piece. Also, there's different anxiety types. So some quizzes, and I'll get to, recommending ones, and we're going to go over one today. Some quizzes are designed to help you identify the type of anxiety you're experiencing. Is it true phobia? Is it social anxiety? Is it, what is it we're looking at? Is it the fear of the unknown? Is it the people?
Yes.
Right? Is it the flying?
Yes.
Also exploring potential triggers, which we're going to get at later, to explore the specific situations or aspects of travel that trigger your anxiety. Maybe I have no issue with the security line and check-ins, but maybe you, Becky, have that's a huge source of angst for you.
Yes.
And so it's really narrowing down at what parts, and then your therapist can help you with these specific things, because then you're going to take that and it's going to guide you toward your coping strategies.
I love
that you can work on. So the one that I took is one of the most widely used ones. It's from the American Psychiatric Association. It's a standard clinical test. It's 10 questions. This one is specifically about flying anxiety.
Okay.
But it gets to all the things we said: severity level, what are the triggers, things like that. So as Becky can see, we're not going to go through and actually take it, but I just kind of want to discuss each of the things.
Yeah.
To show a good quiz will cover each of the facets of this. So for example, number one, and it's lovely because it's multiple choice and you can choose as many as you would like for all the questions. But the first one is, what is it about flying that actually scares you?
I love that question. Yeah. Helps really get at, as you were just saying, the more specificity.
Yes, because it can be, if the plane is a beautiful place to people watch and also observe human behavior, and you will see, a couple who they're just grasping each other's hands for takeoff, but then they're just honky-dory the rest of the time.
Yes.
And then they get nervous again for landing, and so it's very specific parts. I was on a flight once where the turbulence was so awful that people were screaming and crying. And to me, it just didn't bother me half as much as my friend that I was flying with. And she was crying and she looks at me and she's like, "What is wrong with you? Why are you not freaking out?"
Yeah.
Because to me, yes, it was stressful, but it just didn't produce the same level.
Yeah.
So it was a perfect example of we're like in so many ways, but when it came to, well, what gives us anxiety, that was not one of my triggers.
Right. Well, and you bring up such a good point that if, as you mentioned earlier, if someone is more anxious about claustrophobia, they may be in a space looking around and saying, I'm stuck in this spot. Or this spot is confining to me, where someone else may not be anxious about that thing.
Right. And that's the thing that's key too, is studying this area has really made me realize what the plane can represent to certain people. The claustrophobia one is a great example in that, I'm not claustrophobic at all. Think if you were, the bathrooms, you can barely fit one human in them.
Right. Or if what makes you anxious, what about flying actually scares you? The stimuli of all of these conversations.
Yes.
If there's more of a social aspect to this, how many people and how many noises are going on, that part is activating for someone.
Oh, absolutely.
Makes so much sense to me to help. We know how to help ourselves if we know what the issue is.
For sure. One of the little facts that I found fascinating while researching is that you can be born with this fear of flying, which I thought was interesting. But it also can be, we talked about before, is if you have an experience, right, a negative experience. But also what stood out to me is it can also be learned from watching other people experience. So you watch someone on the plane have an awful experience, and then that triggers you of some sort. Or you have a relative in your immediate family that struggles with it, and then their anxiety kind of creeps into you, and then you soon develop those traits. So it can be a learned behavior. All right. So number 2, when some moments of the flying experience can feel scarier than others, in what scenarios does your anxiety increase? And it gives very specific. Is it walking onto the plane? Is it during takeoff? Is it hearing the mechanical noises? Is it when the seatbelt light goes on?
Yeah.
All things too that some people perseverate on, and others like no big deal.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
I don't even think of it when the doors of the plane close. Like, I honestly didn't think about it until I was assessing different things. And then I was like, oh yeah, I mean, I guess that does have to happen for us to like go. And some people, that's like, don't close, don't close, don't close.
Yeah.
And that is a huge trigger for them. So it's
super eye-opening
on
narrowing in and honing in.
Yep. Next one is, have you felt moments of fear in situations when thinking about flying? And for the rest of the questions, it is a never to all the time 1 to 5 scale. And this is to help grasp the idea of that fear sensation, but then also, okay, what are the actual emotions? So is it worried, nervous, anxious? So number 4, have you felt moments of fear in situations when thinking about flying? And the next one, have you felt anxious, worried, or nervous about a situation where flying might be involved? Where people, let's say, are like, we're going to go to Disney World. And all the kids are excited. We're going to take like 4 families together. And everybody's just hyped and whatever. And then I'm sitting in the corner going, very quickly calculating things out. Oop, we can't drive. Oh, okay, this means we're flying. When everyone around me is so stoked.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting here going, oh my gosh.
We're just thinking about the thing, because you're not at what this is getting at is you're not doing it in that moment. You're thinking about doing it.
It's just the thought of it. And one of the hardest things about travel is, no matter what, even if it's like a weekend, like I said, to a hockey game or something, or a massive trip you've planned for 6 months to go to France, there's the anticipation. You never, to very rarely go, all right, Becky, we're leaving in 2 hours and we're going to go to Europe. There's always this, it's on the calendar. And while most people are excited, you're dreading it because of that fear. All right. So the rest of them, like I just said, it's focused on the details of then physical symptoms, muscles tensing, sweating, different things like
racing
that.
Heart, feeling shaky, or do you have trouble breathing?
Yep. And then lastly, the avoidant piece, which we talked about prior, is, have you avoided a situation where you thought there could be a chance of flying? And then that's the idea of, it's really taking, the idea of, I am not engaged in situations because that fear, and that gets into the more like severe than wow, we're really just eliminating that even option, not just I have the capacity to do it.
Right. Is it prohibitive then?
Yep.
When you can see how intense the anxiety is, when a question asks something like, have you changed your behavior because of it? That begins to note, okay, this is impacting me in ways that are harmful then.
Yeah. And we can then track like severity level. And then also it touches on things like distraction, if that's effective for you. And then lastly, have you needed help to cope with this through the means of like alcohol, medication, therapy, to also gauge like, okay, what's the severity level? Do you have to self-medicate in order to fly?
Yep. Yes.
So though that is the standard clinical quiz, I can't emphasize enough the importance of like taking something like that to like discover, even just on your own. If you have no other use than just self-discovery and figuring that out, I think it's a great way
for sure
to learn more, because my favorite part of working with clients is exploring ways to combat travel anxiety.
How to cope.
Yes, how to cope. And now you can make fun of some of these strategies because I've just made them up, and I've also made up names for them because I like to be a little creative. Right? But I want to make sure I touch on, because I don't want to run out of time, I want to touch on the ones that clients have found the most useful and that I found the most useful for myself.
Okay.
First is always just identify your stressors and triggers. Just like if you didn't take the quiz, what are the parts that are most stressful? So it's the security line. Okay. Well, then what can I do to alleviate that anxiety around it? Because if I don't change my patterns of behavior, that anxiety will still exist. So it is, and I know it sounds like a simple solution, but it is, okay, to do that, I am going to get there earlier. I may have to wait, I might have to wake up earlier, but if I can avoid those longer lines, I know that that's going to help me.
Yeah.
So adapt your schedule to that. One of the things that we will do, I know in a future episode, we're talking about different modalities, and some of those modalities use visualization and creating a safe place. And I have done this with even relatives who have anxiety over things like sports and participating or going to school. But I have found this so extremely useful. And what you will do is, for our listeners out there, it's very easy. You can think about it if you're driving, but don't write anything down if you're driving. But take some quiet time. And I want you to just think of a list and create a safe place for yourself. Think of what you see, where are you, what smells, what things do you hear. And soon you create this environment, and you are the only one in it. So your bestie's not there, your spouse is not there. This is a place that you can always go back to no matter how anxious you are, no matter what the cause of the anxiousness is. This is a universal safe place. Now, for some clients or for some people, creating that list and that visual in their mind is enough. I have had, whether it's clients with more severe cases of it, or like I said, I had a relative who just struggled so much and he just needed more than this. So I recorded my voice describing this
the
scenario.
Place, helping you visualize.
Yes. And it's one of those, when you're anxious, your memory doesn't always work as well. And so that then enabled, like, my cousin or my relative or a client can simply hit play, and then it brings them back faster
be
to
guided
that
into that place. I love that.
And you can use this before you get to the airport, while you're there, on takeoff, at any point. Another huge one, and we'll talk about this as well with different modalities. We'll talk in a couple weeks. Bilateral music. So bilateral music, if you're not familiar with it, is such a useful tool. And it's that idea of, rather than music going in both your ears, you need to wear headphones when you're doing this. And it's not always going in both ears at the same time.
Yeah.
And there's different sounds going into your different ears at times.
Yeah, bilateral means it stimulates different parts of your brain, the opposite parts of your brain at different times.
And it's so effective. I can't tell you. You can find them on Spotify. You can go, YouTube has audio and visual where you can see something, but then hear this music. You can honestly search, like go to Spotify and type bilateral music for anxiety, bilateral music for depression, for fear of flying, whatever it is. And that music, although it sounds odd, is really helping your brain calm itself.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful distraction. A couple of the other ones that I will do is the 5 senses exercise. So a lot of times when you're on the plane, you need to be grounded, not literally, but just that concept of grounding your body
in yourself
and your mind. Yep. So the 5 senses one we use all the time is notice 5 things you can see, 4 things you can feel, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. A variation of this, and I think this is awesome for a plane ride because our bodies are so stagnant and just immobile, is the 3-3-3.
Okay.
So it is, you're just sitting in the plane and you look at 3 things you see, 3 sounds you hear, and move 3 body parts.
You could do this while you're standing in a line.
Yep.
If that is the part that you've identified as an anxious spot for you, you can do this while you're standing.
And it's a great tool for kids on the plane as well because they think it's fun. Speaking of kids, this is great for adults too. I've used this with my own children, distraction bags. So you go to the dollar store or to Walgreens or whatever it is, and you can even make things, but you fill a bag with things that the kiddo or the adult has never seen before, and they can't look at it until they're actually on the plane. And that will occupy them because distraction's huge when you have that anxiety of something.
Yes, it is.
People don't understand the power of distraction. And so it is, you can fill it with slime or a little puzzle book. Or the dollar store has a ton of things. Fill it with simple things, snacks that maybe you don't typically allow at home, right? So it's this special thing, and that will consume their thoughts versus, oh my gosh, I'm scared, I'm on a plane.
Yep.
So many of us are tactile, okay, which provides comfort. And it isn't just bring a blanket on the plane for like, ooh, it might get cold. It's that idea of, for many of us, certain textures and feelings provide that comfort and safety.
Absolutely.
And remember, home. So it is that blanket, stuffed animal, fidget, a hoodie that you like the texture of, all the things, and a hoodie you put it over your head, and that also will create a space for you that's more private if you have an issue with the people around.
Well, and what a great idea that if it comes from a spot of your home, and separation anxiety is part of your anxiety, that leaving that safe space or that habitual space, if it's something from there, you are carrying that with you. You are literally taking that space with you.
One of my favorite ones, and this works actually, I've worked with autistic students. I've worked with people who have anxiety about traveling. I call it my exit plan. And what that means, it's for mental breaks. So I work with whoever it is, and we talk about, okay, through this, what are times where you struggle the most? Okay, it's that mom doesn't clearly tell me like about the plans, or we'll be stuck doing something like we'll go to some music thing and there's a dance floor and whatever, but I don't want to do that stuff because I just don't dance. Okay. Then what is your plan for that? That's predetermined. Okay. It is predetermined that I'm going to go listen to music and I'm going to sit at a table, and you create that plan ahead of time rather than creating a conflict while you're there in the moment.
I totally love that because it's communicative. You and I talk about connection ahead of time. It's us empowering ourselves before the thing has happened. So many things are happening there in an exit plan and thinking ahead. So much to think about here. We're headed to a commercial break right now, but when we come back, we're going to talk through listener questions about coping with that and making less anxiousness around travel, coping through it. We will be right back.
Find your people, then you'll find yourself. Nothing to lose. In a world full of strangers, you don't know who to trust. All you see is danger.
We are back again with Feels Out Loud, and this is the part of the show where we talk through questions from you all, our listeners. If you have a question related to mental wellness, sharing feelings, or our topics for each week that you would like us to process through, please visit our website at becomingtogethermn.com and find the Feels Out Loud page to submit a question directly, or you can definitely email us at contact@becomingtogethermn.com. We really do want to hear from you all and what you're wondering about. And I want to say thank you to the people who submitted things about travel anxiety. We are all in, that 71% is in a bucket together.
Yes, it is. And before I get to the amazing question, I just want to end with a couple more tips. So a huge
Which lots of people asked about.
Yes.
And we're addressing a question.
Rather than, ask another question, I thought, let's finish that up. So the exit plan we came up with, it's thinking ahead of time what causes anxiety for you or your family members. The other one is, I call it my needs. And I will do this with clients before they go on a trip. And then I tell them to do this during the trip. And it is state your needs to fellow travelers before you go and ask what theirs are. So you create an open dialogue about, here are my anxieties specifically. I really struggle at the airport. I'm going to be a little short. I typically will, whatever. And so that you are openly communicating with that person about what you need in that moment. When I am short, here's what I need you to do.
That makes so much sense to me.
And then it's also showing that empathetic part of, what are your needs and what do you need from me? So it's talking about my needs. And then lastly, I call it my adventure. Create a bubble map and think of like, okay, our trip. And it's that idea of put all the stressors around it that you anticipate having, but then off of those, the little branches are ways to combat it.
And to me, that is a response to actually what our listener, with the question that we picked. We had so many people who were wondering about tools on how to cope with moments that are anxious when traveling. And this person says, my partner has a very intense fear of flying to the point where we drive everywhere. I feel like we are beyond the point of using general tips, although maybe these tips are ones that people could try because they're beyond the, well, just calm down. Which is what we might say to someone. And so this person's looking for what else?
So if you notice that your partner or yourself have intense fears, there are a couple of things. One, there are specific types of therapy that your therapist can do with you. One of them is CBT, where it identifies and challenges those negative thoughts.
Yeah, we call that cognitive behavioral therapy.
Yes.
Where it looks at the connection between our behaviors, our thoughts, and how we feel.
Yep. And so yours would be around flying.
Yes.
Okay. So those are things that therapists can do without having a specialty. A specialty thing that you can do, and this is becoming huge, and I'm mildly obsessed with this, and I've shared this with Becky before, is virtual reality therapy. But this is virtual reality exposure. So it's rather than exposure therapy, we've talked there, that's a form of therapy. This is using virtual reality. So according to the American Psychological Association, virtual reality allows a user to be an active participant using a computer-generated 3-dimensional virtual world that changes in a natural way with a person's head and body movement. There's been enough research that has determined that doing virtual reality, taking steps, to go on a virtual plane, taking off, having turbulence, is just as effective as doing physical in-person exposure therapy.
Wow.
And think of when you do in-person exposure therapy with flying, you are literally having to drive to an airport, get on a plane, the cost that's involved, the time that's involved.
Yeah.
This is a faster method, and it can be done in an office, and it is becoming extremely popular. I did a quick Google search and located at least three Twin Cities therapy offices that use VR in their practice. Cool.
Well,
so it's growing.
This has been awesome. We're at the end of our show already today, but thank you for listening this morning, and join us next week as we talk through imposter syndrome and ways to cope with that. In the week ahead, be kind to yourself. Remember that connection fosters wellness, and your voice is one the world around you needs to hear. Share yourselves, friends.
Some will, some won't. I wanna feel just a little